All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back. I'm excited for today. I actually had this person reach out to me, which is always super exciting. She got in touch with somebody that I had on when I was doing all my interviews, and then she was so sweet and sent her our way. So I'm super excited for this because I was kind of looking. I don't know her very well. She's a new Instagram friend, and I found her. Her name's Amy, and she's super cute. She's a fellow adoptee. I was just talking to her about her job. She does I can't even say that word, motivational speaking for mental health in the corporate world, which I think is so cool. Um, because it just needs to be known. And I love that mental health is like taking a huge turn that it's talked about more. So I'm super excited to hear from her. So she says she speaks for her job, which is so cool. So she's going to be totally like just comfortable and awesome with this. I know we get some people that aren't so, but I'm super excited. So Amy, I will turn the time over to you.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I was so thrilled. I did a panel on racism with Jackie in Washington. I flew out from Nashville and I met her and we were the only girls and we were just talking and we got on to adoption and both of us are adopted. And so she told me about your guys' podcast. So I had to reach out.
Yay. Yay. No, I'm so excited she did. Awesome. Sweet.
Yes.
Woohoo. Okay.
Yeah. So I was originally adopted from Da Nang, Vietnam. Um, and I was 6 months old when I was adopted to an American couple in the United States. They actually lived in Ohio at the time. And it was a crazy adoption from what I heard because I was one of the first of two babies adopted from Penang to an American couple since the war. Like it was a really big deal. They threw like this whole like party and it was a lot because the paperwork had to be in order. The first adoptions and it was me and this other child and it was crazy because there was paperwork issues, so my mom had to go to court in Hue, or my father had to go to court in Hue, and they didn't give up, which was very very kind of them because I also had RSV. So I
Oh,
was like not great.
yeah.
So they brought me back to Ohio, and my older sister was adopted from China. And because my parents couldn't have kids at the time, and so it was just her and I. And the number one thing, we can all admit that our parents made mistakes along the way, and forgive and everything. But the one thing they really did well was handling our adoptions and always making us realize that they were never taking us away from our birth parents. They were working together with our birth parents to give us the life that we deserve. And it was just all out of love. And they really explained that to us. And then when we turned about like 3 or 4, when we started recognizing that we were a little different, they would like sit us down and talk to us very at our own level about adoption. And then a few years later, they would come back and have another discussion with us, kind of taking more of a more like broader, more serious approach to it. But it was all in celebration. They obviously let my sister celebrate Chinese New Year. I celebrated Vietnamese New Year. And they just wanted us to recognize that we were rooted somewhere and we had the opportunity to grow here, but they never forced anything upon us. Like they never forced us into a religion, they never forced us into really anything. We just got to become who we wanted to be. And I think we also went to Holt Adoption Agency has a camp that I went to for 10 years. And then I actually became an ambassador to them when I was in music industry. I became an ambassador for them. So I've done a lot of work with adoptees and everything. And then years and years and years in um, 20, in 2021, I actually found my birth mom, which was a huge journey. I thankfully have developed a lot of friendships within Vietnam and within the Vietnamese government and also in the US consulate. And it was a very kind of different adoption story because I had a lot of very recognized privileged access to find her. And we found her within 3 months because of
Wow.
how serious they took it, which was like super kind because I was just like, whatever happens, happens. But they sent out like what was it? It was like this letter to the government on cooperation with the US consulate to find my birth mom. And it was just so insanely intense. And we found her and we found my brother. And we have been working, I've been working very hard on making sure that relationship is, I guess, just the way that it's, well, one meant to be, but it's hard. And I think the whole process made me realize exactly what family is. And I love my adoptive family so much. They have been just the best. And meeting your birth mom and your birth brother open up the doors and challenges. But I think in all, it was something that I really wanted to do to find the answers, and not have to live with a question and then decide 5 years later that I wanted to find my mom and her not being alive, especially with after COVID and everything, and at least clear up those answers, no matter what they were, just so I'm not what. And so I feel super lucky, and I know that my older sister adopted from China has like no interest in finding her birth parents. So it's so interesting to hear so many stories and do so much work with Holt. And it's, I'm happy in the sense that I don't have a fairy tale ending to finding my birth parents, so I can very much understand kind of the harder times of it, and kind of empathize a lot more, I feel like, with a lot more adoptees and having this fabulous story, which is how Jackie and I related when I met her in Washington, is we both kind of had similar things and we were kind of, connecting. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And some of my best friends are people I went to this adoption camp with. But that kind of obviously pushed me to my career. I started singing when I was 8 professionally, and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee alone when I was 18, and then I was signed at 19, and then I did that till I was 24, and then I moved into the public speaking aspect, and have always kind of brought adoption within that, because here in Nashville, in the country scene, I'm not only the only Asian, but one of the only adoptees. So it's been such an honor to kind of bring that in and have people recognize that. And I think it's brought a lot of self-identity to me, and then learning about being in a biracial relationship and all of that. And just a, it's something I'm very proud of. And also I have so many Vietnamese friends that it's so nice to live in America, but to be able to really um, be who you are and who you were born as, and represent it instead of letting it hold you back. So
No, I love that so much. And I apologize. You saw I had kids come in. I didn't
no,
really
it was so
hear.
cute.
I was gonna say, and you heard my dog bark as you see her.
I didn't,
So
Delancey probably heard this, but I didn't really hear the part of like, so after you met your birth mom, and then I heard that like it's not like a fairy tale ending. What, I
yeah,
apologize. I missed it. What
I
exact, can I ask what
uh,
happened?
Yeah,
yeah, I wanted some
yes.
detail on that too, if that's okay to
Okay.
ask.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I am in the I found my birth mom, and I should have believed. I went to. I have a shaman and I have a psychic, and I kind of follow along that path a lot, kind of my whole life. And my psychic always told me that there was this male figure that was watching over me and this and that. And I, from our words that we have, it was just my mom, that she gave me up on the day that I was born because she couldn't take care of me. And we had her name, we had her thumbprint. So it was pretty easy to find her, especially because Da Nang is smaller in a sense, and there's usually one person. And so find her, and then we found that I had a biological brother. And that was crazy, because that was honestly my worst fear going into it, was having another sibling who was still in Vietnam and who I felt a lot of sympathy to that. I recognize my life, and you know, he gets to be with my mom, but I knew that was going to bring such a different challenge of resentment and guilt, and just another person that, God forbid in 10 years, I wanted to actually take action and, bring someone over. It's now like two people instead of one. And I don't know. And I know that is kind of selfish to think, but I knew it would be a lot harder because there is another person involved within this. And have to be very accurate. Like I I recognize that everything my brother has said and done is out of pain and, his own life. But apparently when my mom had my brother, who's like a year than me. Well, I don't know if he's a year older than me, because in Vietnam, you're technically a year older than what you really are. They count your year in your stomach. So I'm 25, but I might actually be 26 because of something. But he's 26, which means he's really 25. Yes.
I have questions because this is okay. Explain that one more time, because this is a little bit a little. I'm trying to wrap my head around the year older than what you are, because I want to wrap my head around that. Explain that one more time for me.
Yeah.
I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's bizarre. I have a life crisis about it almost every day. So a lot of like Vietnamese people count when their baby is in their stomach, they count that as their first year. So when they're
Okay.
born, they're already a year old. So my brother is a year older than me, but because he was born in Vietnam, I actually think he's the same age as me, because they can't mess up my paperwork when it's so government adoption. So I'm pretty sure I'm 25. My friends like to tease me that I'm 26 just to make my brain go crazy. But that's pretty much it. Is they just counted. So I have an older brother, and he was born first, and my mom was poor, and my dad went to Da Nang out of the village to find work. And so my mom gave my brother up for adoption to my grandmother, who lived in Vietnam. And then she went to
Okay.
Da Nang and found my dad and had me. And then I guess my father died when she was pregnant. So when she gave birth to me, she also had to give me up for adoption, but she gave me to an orphanage and gave me to an orphanage to be adopted to America. And you always hear during the Vietnam War how, the mother chooses out of her children to be put on the ship to go to America. And that was always something I never wanted to think that I was more worth it or more better to do something, because I think we all believe and know the power that we have, but to actually feel that type of pressure, like physically, and know that that's kind of in a sense what happened, it brought a whole nother level of just kind of, it gave validation, but it also gave a lot of sadness that I wasn't expecting, because I never want, like I said, I wanted to be a quote unquote bigger light or be seen as someone who has a bigger destiny than someone else. As much as I might feel it, you never really want to be told that within your family that you were chosen or you were better than someone. So that was hard. And then my brother, he bless him, they live a completely different life, and I'm very aware of that. My mom's still homeless. She's always been homeless. My brother had to marry another woman to be able to live with his family, and he's not happy, and he has gambling debt, and and a few months in, they just automatically, not my mom, but him, just automatically started asking for money and for me to pay his gambling debt, and said, I need to come to Vietnam because my mom didn't take care of him, so he doesn't want to take care of her anymore. And just like all that stuff that you're just like, no. And then he always asks me what's so good about America that I won't come back and stuff like that. So after about like 6 months of it, I kind of just cut him out. And I
Mhm.
went through that whole process of questioning, is it both of them? Is it just him? And, my mom would just be so upset whenever we talked. And so it felt at the moment like both of them. And then later last year, after kind of settling with it for almost a year, I recognized that my mom is still homeless. And so I don't think she has a lot of part with my brother. But the hardest thing is they're very poor, which means they're very uneducated. And my mom doesn't know how to read or type. Someone's always typing for her. So it's kind of hard to figure out who that is. But the person she works for, she works she sells people in a little village, which is adorable. Her boss bought her a phone, like her own phone, that
Oh.
she can now like Facebook message me. But I'm very protective with my boundaries, and they're still strangers to me. I don't associate them as my family like I do with my actual family. But I have like my public page, and that's the only access that she has right now. And so I'm very kind of keeping space, keeping her updated. She met my boyfriend, and she loves him because Vietnamese people love tall, blonde, Caucasian man.
That's funny.
So it's been a journey, and I'm so thankful for it, but it's definitely been very hard. And I think that's one of the things that I feel grateful to be able to share, is that it's not a fairy tale. And I think it's so harder for adoptees because I know most people have a fantasy about it, and then they wake up to the reality of it. And I know with me, it was so hard because my entire career publicly, I've always stated that my mom loved me so much and she just wanted me to have a better life and everything. And then when I met them, my brother made it sound like we gave you up so we could have a better life. So he knew that I would find them. And then, in a sense, they made me feel like I owed them something for what they did for me. And that was something that you obviously are like, no, that's not how it happened. But after 24 years of having this idea, it was a big reality check to what it is and finding new purpose, because they're who you. So it was a huge rebirth to make peace with who I thought I was, and this is the reality, but it's still empowering as the last one. It's just a completely different story that I have to start over with. And that was a big journey. But, I had so many friends and such a great support. But it is hard sometimes because not a lot of people go through all of this at the type of, circumstances. And so it was very interesting. And it's hard because I'm not fluent in Vietnamese. So it's always been a tricky language barrier. I do okay. I know how to like type 70% and I understand a lot, but I always call people fat, and because it's such a tonal language, I always
That's
say the
funny.
wrong thing. Like it's so embarrassing.
No, that's okay.
Well,
So yeah, no, go ahead, down, Nancy. You're good.
no,
Sorry.
that's fine. Go ahead. No, go ahead. It's fine.
No, I was just gonna say like it's very different, and I like these kinds of stories because then it does show the reality that not all the time, because I mean, like for instance, when I met my birth mom, like I have a whole slew of I can't talk today, siblings. But to hear
Yeah.
your perspective on feeling like how you feel towards to the siblings, like through the whole thing, I just like learning about these things because it's totally different. And this is where people need to remember, like, each story is different and has its own uniqueness to it. And like you said, there's not always a happy-go-lucky ending to it with all of them, and it can be hard. And that probably, like with you, was one of my biggest fears in finding my family, because they're in Colombia, to be like, hey, we need money, but they've never asked for it. I don't know if it's but I can't even imagine that. So yeah. Okay. Sorry, Delancey, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's really healthy to have those boundaries that
Thank
you've
you. Yeah.
created. And I think a lot of people who aren't in the position that the three of us are in as the actual adoptees don't really fully understand that we may be open to something and we may go into something with open arms. And then it may be that day, it may be a month, maybe 5 years later. When we create healthy boundaries, when we recognize behavior that's, there's no other way to put it, but like it's kind of like toxic to our inner joy, we have to protect ourselves with that. And hope, and it's great. I think it's fantastic that you have a support system that supports you with those boundaries, because not everybody has that. You know, we see it all the time on social media. No, they're your quote unquote real family. They're your actual family. They're the ones that, you know, you're supposed to, you were ripped from them, you were taken, and all this other hoopla, wackadoodle stuff that people want to say. And it's just like, no, my family's the one that raised me. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah.
That's my family.
And
And
it's
it's not a, it shouldn't be that whole pressure. You shouldn't, because you're biologically and genetically linked to someone, you shouldn't be forced to have them in your life.
mhm,
Like I have that boundary with some
good. Yeah.
biological family where it's like, you can see what's on my Facebook page that I let you see. We don't need to have anything outside of that. So I applaud you
It's
for
true.
doing that.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I really appreciate it. And I mean, the thing about it is that I still very much hope it can be that happy ending, but it's not rainbows and butterflies, but that's the choice
Mhm.
that one has to make. And I, my adoptive father and I haven't had the best relationship our entire lives, but when I moved away, I moved out of the house, it took about 5 years, and he's my best friend now.
Mhm.
And my adoptive mom, she passed away years and years ago. So, but she was my like reincarnation mother. Like, she was supposed to find me. We have my adoptive mom and I have the same birthday. Like, she's like genuinely like my mom. And so then we have my birth mom, who feels very kind of like, not to put this in a bad way, and she's never going to be able to understand this, but she feels like a grandma, like she feels like a little guardian, but
Mhm.
it never replaces the love that I have for my
Mhm.
mom. And I hope one day that maybe I could feel something different, but that's up to me. And I think that's number
Mhm.
one thing that I try to tell other people, but also have to remind myself is this is my choice, this is my decision.
Mhm.
I'm not obligated. I don't owe anyone anything. And
Mhm.
the biggest thing I learned with the whole money thing is that they've been poor and I feel awful. Like, you don't want any of your family or anyone in your life to be in poverty. It's just something
Mhm.
that breaks my heart, and is something that I definitely have a lot of reality with, how my career's gone and how very privileged I am and how I feel, and to try to give, knowing I'm privileged, to be able to help the unprivileged. And that's a big
Mhm.
mission of mine. But in the same sense, when it comes to Vietnam, when it comes to people who are poverty in Vietnam, they've been poor their entire life. And the second I give them money, that survival instinct that has kept them going just goes away. And I actually do
Mhm.
them a disfavor, because then they won't fight for themselves. And that
Mhm.
was something I really, really, really had to stick in my brain, because, when they ask for 1 million VND, that's like, it's not a lot of money in US dollars. Like, 500,000 VND is $25. Like, it's not, it's the
Oh, wow.
currency exchange is insane. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
and
Holy
then
cow.
like and then like an Uber ride is like 20,000 VND, which, so it's like cents. Like, I was there for 3 months once, and I spent $60 in like Uber. They have like Uber car and Uber bike. So you just ride on the back of people's motorcycles. It's great. But the entire trip, it was $60, which is like
Wow.
a few million VND. It's like that cheap. And I rode every day. So it's like, it's hard, because you're logically just like, I can do it, I can help them. Like, they deserve it, maybe. But then you just realize too that you're just taking away something that they've been living, and whether or not they want it, most people in Vietnam are so prideful, they usually don't ask
Mhm.
for it. And I
Yeah.
don't know who asked for it. I believe it's my brother. I'm not ready to believe that was fully, my mom's plot. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes I think that's me coping and me hoping that things will get better. But
Yeah.
also, I do try to see the benefit of the doubt. And I gave my brother so many chances, and he's not a bad person. He just is so hurt. And I understand that hurt, because I could say that, if it was the opposite way, I know for me that I would be exactly who I am in Vietnam and make the opportunities and become who I want to be within that circumstance, which would be very different than who I am now. But you know what? If I found my brother who was living a life that I'm living right now, I want to say I would be a better person and not feel resentment. But I don't know many people who could actually not feel something negative towards it. And
Right.
that's me being completely honest with myself, because I was like, oh yeah, I'd be so happy for them. And I was like, would I? Like, selfish, like I don't know if I fully would. And I think with time I might, but we subconsciously just grow towards that and want that and get jealous of that. And a lot of times, like, thankfully, I've learned to recognize that I can get that. I don't need to be jealous. I need to just do my work in that. But when you're living in Vietnam, when you're, fishing and, isn't that, even it's hard to FaceTime them, because I don't like being in my house, because they
Interesting.
don't really have that house. Like,
Oh.
I go up against a wall that has no artwork, no guitars, like, just like, or I'm outside, because I just don't like them seeing the way I live. And it's
Yeah.
part of me feeling bad, but also me keeping my safety and everything. So it's and that's things I never thought I would have to be aware of,
Right. Right.
So
So did you go to Vietnam then? Because you were talking like
I
you.
haven't been back. I haven't met them physically. I've
Okay. But
only
you
talked to them.
have you
I
visited though? Okay.
I
But
have.
not
Yeah.
them. Okay.
No, yeah. I
Okay.
went in 2019 for I actually did a tour in music
Oh,
and did
cool.
radio and did had a booking agent in Vietnam, and that's where I actually met my friends in the US consulate, because I I'm part of a ambassadorship with a group in Vietnam whose president was the former ambassador to the EU. And so I had that government connection. I was supposed to go in 2020 because of that ambassadorship. They actually were going to send me a plane to come into Vietnam,
Wow.
because I wanted to live very poorly. And I actually went to London and unfortunately gave up that opportunity because I had a job offer in London that I couldn't refuse. So I stayed in London for a year, and then I came back to Nashville and haven't been able to fully go back to Vietnam. But I also feel like I'm just not ready to go back to Vietnam. And I'm very one who likes to prepare. And if I get into a fight, know everything I'm fighting for,
Right.
and heal as much as I can to then be able to handle it. Because it's going to be, we all, like, it's hard. And especially when you have the expectation, at least you can take some control back from your
Right.
thoughts and your fears and try to heal as much. And I just want to make sure everything's good, but then unfortunately I have to look at the safety aspect of it too. Like, I need someone there who speaks full Vietnamese. I might need to bring someone from the government, and just all of that. And then also, unfortunately, I have to look at my public life and figure out if I need to bring a camera crew, or this and that, to share it, which I would love to, but that's what makes me really much need to heal, to be able to publicly
Yeah.
be continuously to be publicly open about it.
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, no, it's a lot. And I'm with Delancey. I think that's so awesome because boundaries can be so hard for people to set. And I love that you've recognized everything that you need to set. And especially like with going, there, and it's got to be on your time if and when it happens. And it's crazy. And like Delancey said, I don't think people get that factor unless you're adopted and you have met and you have gone through things. I mean,
Mhm.
because even though like, stories may be happier on my end per se, like a lot of the things that you're saying about going to Vietnam is 100% how I feel about going to Colombia. It honestly scares the shit out of me. Like, and I
Yeah.
have to, you know what I mean? There's like, because there's a lot to unpack. And I don't think people realize that when you're going to a completely different country that you're not even familiar with, you know what I mean? It's not like safe per se because it's home. I'm not saying that it's not safe. It's just not what you're comfortable with. And so I empathize with that. So I'm so glad you said that because like
Thank you. I
I'm
will.
just like it
And
scares
it's
me,
like,
and so I get
it's,
it.
and it's, the crazy thing about it is that it's not even that bad. Like, you're not scared of the physical world. You're scared of your internal spirit and
Yes.
yourself and what you're exposing yourself to and what doors you're
Yes.
opening. Like,
Exactly.
sometimes you're just like, let's just keep them closed. I don't need to
So
walk
true.
that path yet.
Yes.
And that's the fear. Like, I love Vietnam. I love Vietnam. I love going there. I feel so at peace. But then to have that obligation that I'm in Vietnam now, I have to go talk to my family and work, because it is
Yeah.
work, because you're internally working, you're doing all of that type of stuff. That's like, just
Yeah.
I'm waiting still.
Yeah. No, I get it because it is. It's a lot to unpack. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot. And everybody's like, well, you could bring them on like a mutual turf. And I'm like, that's kind of hard because like they don't
That's,
have as much as I have, and I can't really like do like I'm not it goes
oh
back to the
my
money
God.
aspect. You can't
Yeah.
fork out the money to be like, hey, I'm gonna fly you here to do this, because then in turn, I love what you said because it's so true. And it's not just with, I feel like it goes with anybody. When you start doing that for people, then they're going to always, they're not going to fight for it. And
Yeah.
why wouldn't you want to fight for things that you have? That's just me. But you know what I
That's,
mean?
I agree with that. And that's
Like,
funny too, because everyone tells me that I should bring my mom to America, and they're, people are always like, "Well, help with the visa." I'm like, I'm not worried about the visa. I'm worried that she's just gonna run away with all of my stuff. Not to be like she's a thief,
no,
but
yeah,
she, like, once you experience America, most people don't want to leave. Like, she's gonna
yeah,
live and see car, or she sees cars,
right,
but she's gonna like use a bathroom and a shower, like just the small
right,
things that you never think about someone, living
Mhm.
on the streets in Asia would experience. I
right,
want her to experience that, but I need it
yeah,
to be the right time because she's never going to leave.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
maybe, I hope there's a time where I don't want her to leave,
right,
but like,
right. No,
I
yeah,
would have to get safes. I would have, and it's,
yeah,
I feel like I'm sounding so negative towards, and I'm not. I genuinely really appreciate her. I appreciate the relationship we've gathered, but it's the reality of things that we just live
Mhm.
such different lives, and
yeah,
I
Mhm.
will always protect myself and my family, which is me and my boyfriend, and my adoptive family first, because that is who I've
right.
recognized is my family.
Mhm.
Right, right. Well, and I love
Well,
it. And I
and
feel like it's not even, oh, sorry, Delancey. I'm going to say this real quick.
no, it's
It's
fine. Go
not
ahead.
even like people who are like, don't have, I mean, there's even people around, I feel like, that would even try and take advantage, and because I'm trying to help, like you reiterate, like just
Oh
because she
yeah.
lives there, because
Yeah,
there's other
no.
people that'll take advantage of you that are not in the lifestyle that she's in either. So, like I
Yeah.
said, I love that there's boundaries. Okay, go ahead,
Thank
Delancey.
you.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. The moment passed. We're good. It was just
Yeah.
it was just a comment.
Well,
Go ahead.
that was the thing too, is like, I've experienced so many people manipulating, and I was 18 in the music industry. Like, I think that's what's made my awareness and my boundaries so much stricter is, when I was 18, my first employee was a lawyer, and I just walked around because I never wanted anyone to think that they could take advantage of me. And obviously the ones who did were the ones who I let come into my circle. Everyone knew that this is a girl who's serious. This is a girl who's signed. This is a girl who has the path that she thinks she has. But then when you come into my circle and realize that I, have that ego, but I also am very kind. I'm a very big people pleaser. That's the advantage. And I'm pretty young to recognize that. And, I've even had it in my extended family, like people who are my mom's cousins who, you know, doesn't make them my cousins. I have a completely separate name and all of that stuff. So I've become very aware on it. And I think it's something that you have to figure out what's going to be right for you. And I genuinely respect people who just kind of go with it in a sense to where whatever happens, happens. But they're, you know, just through love and recognizing the best in people. And I always do that, but I always know that to be able to do that, I have to fully be selfish to be selfless. And that's kind of been my motto through all of this, is to really make sure that I'm the best. And I think that in a sense that I think my mom would want me to be cautious. You know, I don't think she wanted to give birth to me to, you know, make me be a pushover and to just be, you know, taken advantage of. And then again, that could just be an American side of me. So, but
No, I totally, yeah. I'm trying to think. Do you have any questions off the top of your head, Delancey, or anything? I'm trying to think.
Mm-mm.
No, and I love that a big part of it has shaped you into like the mental health aspect that you're working so hard on with
thank you.
yourself. Um, because it's a lot. Like, you know, we both know it's a lot, and there's a lot that still comes with it, even day to day. It never goes away with being adopted and meeting that birth family. It's crazy. So, I do want to ask, because we do like to ask this too. What advice would you give to, because, oh, see, I feel like your parents did such an amazing job with like just honing everything on making you, you know, feel like I love that they brought the Vietnamese part to it, and same with your sister. And I feel like they did just a really good job honoring you guys in that aspect, and, you know, letting you know you're adopted, which is huge, because it's just crazy when I hear people that haven't told their kids that they're adopted. And so I love that they took the time to sit down and do that with you guys too. Because I was going to ask, but your parents are, yeah, sorry, I'm rambling all over the place. So my
No.
question, being like, what advice would you give adoptees who are wanting to seek out their birth families, and like, you know, having maybe some of the thoughts and fears that you kind of had when you went to seek yours? That's, yeah, I'll ask that.
I, I I always try to remind people, because I definitely know how each adoption story is different, just on how they identify themselves and how, whether or not they even want to be adopted or not, and that aspect. And I think no matter how you feel about your adoption, no matter what you want to do with it, I always just try to remind people that you were given a life, and you know, the adoption process or in the coping and the living might be really hard. Like I went through every single mental health issue when I was growing up as an adoptee. And it wasn't because of adoption, but you go through the process on like, my life could have been better if I wasn't adopted, and this and that. And I always try to remind people that, you know, you were adopted to create the life that you want. And whether that is going back to your family, your birth family, staying with your family, not even thinking that you are adopted, because you are adopted, you're then able to make those choices for yourself. And that's the biggest thing, is no matter how you feel, no matter who you meet, it's always yourself. And I think it's hard because a lot of times adoptees in some way, shape, or form always just want to belong to a family, whether it's your friends that you make, whether it's, you know, you being closer to your family. We all want to be loved and accepted and feel like we belong somewhere. And I know that's definitely an identity thing I had to go through when I was younger. But in the end, you have yourself. And because of this opportunity, whether it was a good opportunity in your mind or not, you can then make the choice on what you want to do. And it's a life, you know, you're given your life to make those choices. And I think just trust yourself, trust your heart, and know that no matter what circumstances that you have, you in the end always have the choice to decide what you want to do with it.
No, I love that, because it is, I mean, it is choice. I mean, you see people, and we know people with a lot of hard stories too, and they could have chosen to just take it a completely different way. Same with like your story. You could have chosen to take it a completely different way, but instead you're choosing, to do the best for yourself and continue to, sounds like you've always been somebody to just like bust your butt to freaking get, where you need to be and what you want and all those things, which I think is so awesome because it does come with the same aspect of, trying your hardest to pull yourself out of really hard things, because it can be really hard when there's not people around that can relate to it. So no, I love that. I love that so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, even being in a relationship who's with someone who's not adopted, it's crazy how adoptees are but that's what I love about the adoptee community is you just say you're adopted and you instantly are like, yeah, I understand you.
No, it's so true. No, it is. It is. It's so true because there's people who, who aren't adopted, who can't relate, who try, they're helpful with their advice, but sometimes you're like, okay, I love you and I know you're trying to helpful, but that's not helpful right now. Like you just don't understand
Are
it.
they
So
are they helpful with their advice sometimes?
no.
They
The
try to
weirdest
be.
the
They try to
weirdest
be.
thing I always hear about adoption, the number one question I've always gotten is if I'm going to adopt. Like I'm
Yeah.
obligated to adopt because I'm adopted. That's not one that's always kind of like, huh, that's a
Yeah.
weird thing to ask.
I don't I don't know that I've gotten that very much. I get more things like, well, where's your real mom? Like I get
That's what I
things
Really?
like
get.
that all the time. Yeah. Where's your real
I get
mom?
where your real parents. Have you met your real parents? Yeah, I talk to them every day, man. They raised me.
Jeez. Yeah, it's such a, and their vocabulary is always, it's like one of those, oh, no, my English is today. Um, like they don't know it's bad, but it's bad. What's that word?
Mhm.
Like it's
N-
super insensitive, but they genuinely just don't
Mhm.
know, so they're being insensitive because they don't know what the right language is. But you're kind of like,
Mhm.
you know that there may be a better way to say
Mhm.
this.
Well, and it's so funny because we talk about that so much, and we actually did a whole entire thing around verbiage, like trying to help educate people
That's
because
amazing.
it's such a teachable moment to help somebody understand the things that are coming out of their mouth might be construed as insensitive or just flat out rude, and helping them learn that. But then you have that like 10% of people who just double down because they're like, no, it's my way, it's whatever I say, and that's the right way to say it because of the whole entire free speech thing. But the thing that they forget is that free speech isn't free of consequences.
Oh, for sure. And this is
So
like that's a great way to say it. I've always been one to really remind people that words hurt as much as a punch. And
mhm,
you know, not even with adoption, but when I was in middle school and bullied and everyone called me fat, everyone called me ugly and I needed to die. Like
mhm,
in that mindset as an 11, 12-year-old, like I self-harmed those words in my arm. And that was the thing, is you never know, like you might not
mhm,
think your words have consequences, but then those people hold on to those
mhm,
words to create a
mhm,
consequence for everyone.
mhm,
And it's just a reminder to not only just be kind, but just be compassionate, which is just
mhm,
kindness and understanding put together, you
mhm.
know?
And be willing to learn when somebody
Yeah, exactly.
corrects you with what you're saying. Be willing to learn and be willing to develop and grow as a human being. I think that's the reason why we mention this so much. We mention the verbiage piece. I think that comes up every single episode.
I love that
Yeah.
though, because it needs to be educated because like I don't know many, and I think this is one of the things that kind of drove me, and I think might drive you guys as well, is there's not many adoptees speaking about
Mhm,
this in the A-list world. Like no one is educating about this. I feel like the only education that gets put on verbiage is for adoptees.
mhm,
Like I remember
Yeah.
when in those camps we were taught about all of these verbiage and everything to say and this and that. I'm like,
mhm,
okay, tell our parents too, so they can tell their friends,
mhm. Yeah,
like,
it's definitely a what about the rest of the world?
yeah. I feel like a lot of the education that I do and have done is actually drawn more towards the parents. And I think that's because
Mhm,
I received such an amazing parental upbringing when it came to my parents. And I've talked to a lot of parents about adoption and, the celebration aspect. And I talked to someone who didn't want to celebrate their child's gotcha day, which, the day that they were adopted. And I love my gotcha day. It's like a second birthday. It's like a rebirth. And I kind of went back to the aspect of, celebrating this and that. And so a lot of my speaking lately has actually been more directed to the parents.
Yeah. I'm actually glad you brought up Gotcha Day. I prefer my Gotcha Day to my birthday.
Yeah.
I really do, because like not everybody has a Gotcha Day.
It's true.
Everybody has a birthday. Like,
that's cool.
I mean, it is something unique, and it is something different, and it's the whole entire encouraging parents to celebrate Gotcha Days is awesome. And it's one of those things that it's almost like however you celebrate, just make them feel like special. Like my parents would send me a text message, like letting me know, or actually my favorite one, scratch that. My favorite one was they were driving through Jacksonville, where I was born and where they picked me up. They drove by the hospital on my Gotcha Day. It was so weird. And they took a picture and they sent it to me, and they're like, hey, remember this? This is, and I'm like, no, I don't. Like I was 2 days old. No, I don't remember that. But I get the sentiment. Like, I'm like, I don't remember it, but I'm glad you do. Like, it doesn't have to be a big, like, huge party, but something to celebrate it is important. So good on you for encouraging that.
Thank you. Yeah, I always saw it as my birthday was, I was born as a human, and my Gotcha Day was when I was born into life. And very much try to keep that perspective on it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Jot that down for the quote.
I'll remember.
That was a really good one. That was really, really good. I had written down something else she said. I was like, ooh, that's the quote.
Thank you.
That was the quote.
But I love that. I prefer my Gotcha Day too. I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. See, and I'll be honest, I don't really know mine, but I don't really care, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I don't really care. Like, it's not something. So that's like, again, where it can be different. You know what I mean? Like, it's not but I love my birthday. Maybe that's why. Maybe I just, because I focus on that, but I love my birthday. But that's, I mean, I guarantee you if I asked, I don't know. I feel like there's so much, like being a parent anyway, but being an adoptive parent, man, there's like a whole nother load of stuff that just like you have to make sure, because you know what I mean? Like, yeah, but
I was gonna say, even domestic or international, there are so many, like, I mean, Milena was like, we were on here before we started recording, and she had asked me a question. I was like, hold on, I don't know. And I called my mom on speaker, and I learned a piece of information in that moment. I was like, what? And I mean, Milena, like, domestic adoption, and I'm still learning things about my adoption. Like, that so much goes into it. It's not a carry a baby for 40 weeks and then go have the baby and then wait like a day or two in the hospital now, and then you go home and you celebrate in the nursery and baby it's complete, like, it's wholly different. It's completely different.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Birthing my own children, I don't remember all the details. So that's why I'm saying, like, for those adoptive parents, it'd be like, whoa, whoa. That's where I'm like, whoo, it's a lot. So more props to them. No, and I feel like too, there's been a shift with more of adoptees trying to help educate adoptive parents, especially. I know I have a bunch that follow me that like that, because like, I feel like, I don't know, me and Delancey for sure help try and educate, but we're not nasty about it. Does that make sense? Because there are some that are nasty that really scare the parents away. Like, whoa, okay, I can never be a parent. And
it's
so we
so
just
gross.
try really.
It's so gross. Like on some social platforms, there's some that like in the way, and they say they're educating, but like, I'm sorry, it's really hard for me to be educated by somebody that's like, no, adoption industry is like absolutely terrible. Like, you should never do that. Yeah, okay, so Pavlov Sinclair 252, you asked a question about adoption. I asked and answered it. Maybe got to, and it's just going. Can you please have some like emotion in your voice?
That's so intense. It's
oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
See, that's the reason, like, I loved your story with the, like, not so, like not a fairy tale ending, but like you're still hoping it'll get there, but like you're okay if it's not.
Yes, thank
Like,
you.
and like you still have such that inner joy in you that it comes out. You're like, it wasn't perfect, but you know what? I learned and I'm thankful for it. It's like, I like that.
Thank you.
I really like that.
No.
I'm very grateful. Well, I think that's the thing is that, um when we most of the people who are expressing that, has a lot of trauma and inner demons
Mm-hmm.
and thoughts that they're just stereotyping on other people
Mm-hmm.
through whatever because they have a lot of unhealed. And I always say when you're truly judging someone, you're judging a part of them that you see in yourself that you haven't healed yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the
Mm-hmm.
way to be for it to be risen to the surface, and then just not everyone can be aware in that moment that that's something that they might need to work on as well. But then you always people's communication things are so different, like karma is a thing, and someone who does speak negatively is someone who does speak to hurt, that there's always going to be
Mm-hmm.
some type of karma. Not that I wish karma on
Mm-hmm.
anyone, but it's just kind of how it works. But
Oh no, 100%. We were I was actually talking to my parents about something similar to that recently. I had a huge blessing come into my life. And I was talking to my mom and my dad and one of my sisters about it. And my dad just said, he was like, Lancey, what have I told you? Like I've been, your mother and I have been telling you when you do the right things, you follow God's plan, you do what you're supposed to do and everything like that. And you just trust in everything and you just keep going, you get blessed, maybe not in a way you're expecting, but the blessings come to you. And I was just like, I mean, I'm gonna say you're right because you're right, but like
we'll see.
you're right. Like fine, fine, dad. Like you're right. Like as an adult, I like reverted back to a teenager. It's like, oh, fine, like you're right. But it is very much that when what you put out in the world is what you get back.
Oh, for sure.
100%. And whenever like you just said, it hurt people.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like instead of spreading the negativity, accept it, because is it really just a change of story or is it just a plot twist?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. It's so true.
I mean, I remember that English class, you had to have like the beginning, the end, and then you had your peak, and you had the
Yeah.
climax of the story, and then it continues with the rest, and then that's just how your
Totally.
story goes. Maybe education's different now. I don't know, but I remember that.
I know, I
And
remember
that's
that too.
yeah, I mean that's just like for your story and for anybody else's, you're just having plot twists.
Yeah, it's
Well,
true.
that's the beauty of life.
Mhm.
It's
For
true.
sure.
Very true.
Sorry, I kind of hijacked the end.
No, I love
No,
that. I love that so much.
don't ever apologize. No, I love that. No, and it's true. And I mean, you probably feel the same way with these people when we come across them. I mean, me and Delancey, I mean, I know Delancey comes across them quite a bit on TikTok. We just tried our best to just send prayers and good vibes their way that they can
Mhm.
heal.
Yeah, and
I'm
and that's the number one thing that I try to remind people. Like it's so hard when you are just getting shit on or when you're getting triggered, but
Mhm.
sometimes the people who show the most unkindness need to be shown kindness the most.
Amen.
I'll
Another
agree
good
with
quote.
that.
Delancey, are you writing all these down?
I'm about like she's this is literally the third one that she said and I'm like, yes. Okay.
Thank
Actually, no,
you.
it's the fourth one because the other one just popped in my head too. Like there are four that are just like sticking out in my brain right now. They're
Thank
lighting up
you.
like Christmas trees. You know what,
No,
Melanie,
I
you're on your
love
own
that.
picking this one. I
Delancey.
can't
I'll
pick.
probably send the same four to you. You'll be like, nope, I told you, you have to choose.
Well, told you. Those are
Good
like
luck. I love that. No, I love that so much. Okay. Anything else that you want to share, Amy?
I mean, I'm just so thankful for you guys and what you're doing in your platform. And I think it's really special. And I'm very honored to be a part of it.
Well, thank you for reaching out and coming on and sharing with us. Like, really, like, we're so appreciative of it. And it's just, I think my favorite thing about this, and I probably say this every time too, is I learn something new every single time I do one of
Mhm.
these. And that's why I like, it's transpired into this and I love it. Like, I love it. I love that we do this because we get to learn and we get to learn that not all stories are the same and there's always something to learn from each human. And it's just the
Mhm.
best thing ever. So
And we
seriously.
learn and develop and we grow and it's like it's fun. It's a
is.
fun way to learn because I
It
learned a
is.
whole bunch.
Yes.
And that's how learning should be. It should be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love it so much. Okay. All right. Oh, Delancey, do you have anything else you want to ask Amy? Okay. Awesome. Sounds good. Well, like I will yeah. You guys, if you can find Amy, that's great. I was gonna ask, I don't know if I can tag you. Am I okay to tag you in our show notes? If
Oh,
not, I probably should have
absolutely.
asked you that off air.
No, it's totally fine.
Pressure.
I'm
I'm
a
like,
free
oh.
book. No, it's all good. And then I always say, anything I say can be used. If I don't want it to be used, I don't say it. So I'm so
Perfect. I
thankful
love
that
that.
you guys gave me
Oh,
this
that's another good
platform.
Dang, girl.
I'm gonna put that on Twitter.
Do it. See,
That was one of those like Twitter quotes
it's
Yeah,
for
true.
sure.
No, it's so true. You should make it, Amy. You should totally make one and put it on your Instagram as a little box. You can do that. That'd be awesome.
Definitely, especially if you don't want it used, don't say it.
Yes. Yes. So good.
I try to say
Anyway,
that a lot for awareness for
no,
other people.
I love it's so no, it's so true. I love that so much. So
Thank
all
you.
right. Thanks guys for joining
Thank
us and
you.
listening in. And like I said, now that I have her permission, I'll go ahead and tag all her stuff in the show notes when this launches. But seriously, Amy, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a part of your day with us and just sharing your story. We so appreciate it.
Thank you so much.